Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you are all fighting that war against the Grey. Today we have another wishlisting video, this one very dear to my heart, and we are doing Cities of Sigmar. These wishlisting videos are nothing but my own opinions and my own wants about these particular armies that are being done. However, I'd also like to hear your opinions and your thoughts on what you would like to see from these armies in the future. As mentioned today, we are doing the Cities of Sigmar, and let's get cracking onto it. So, number one, I want to see more cities outside of the two realms that we've already explored in the main book for Cities of Sigmar. So I'm of course talking, we've already got many cities out of both Akshi and Garan, and that does make sense why they were the first two realms chosen, as these are the realms that Sigmar has got his main spearhead in. With this, we can hope to see in the future maybe other cities that have come to light in other realms that we know of, potentially maybe things like Excelsis, Shul, Gul, or even Glimsforge. I think these would give a lot more depth to the army, and it would be interesting to see what we could do with this. Maybe Glimsforge, because they fight alongside their ancestors, can actually outlay in some death troops. And maybe Shul Gul can take some extra beasts and stuff in their army. So let's move on to point number two, and it is some named characters. I say this a lot about the factions, but named characters were a great thing in Warhammer Fantasy. They gave you a setting, and like maybe at times they were overbearing in Warhammer Fantasy, but I don't feel they can be as overbearing in a much more broader setting like Age of Sigmar than they were in Warhammer Fantasy. Named characters allow the army to have a place and have a common direction regardless of what you are playing. You can have this direction, or you can be going against the direction, which forges a narrative for your army. I'd like to see, obviously we have the Stormcast character. His name does escape me, that is the Magister of Hammerhall, and that is cool, but I'd like to see some named Cities of Sigmar generals, notable Black Ark Corsair characters, a Wanderer Prince, something like that. Point number three, I think they really missed a beat with this when they did the Battalions, and many people do think that the Battalions are the weakest part of the Cities of Sigmar Battletome. The Cities of Sigmar Battletome, for a good point, is probably one of the best written Battletomes in existence in AOS. It is really, really great, and I'm not just saying that out of personal bias. A lot of the units are very well costed or efficient and do a job. Maybe there's some changes that can be made, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but all the sub-allegiances are good, all of them have some potential, and they all see gameplay a lot. The one thing that Cities lacks is good battalions. And well, not even good battalions, like there are some of the battalions that are actually really good. And one of these, I like the idea that it has, and that is the Aether Guard Windrunners. So this is taking some Outrunners, a Free Guild General, but also lets you take some character and Overlords in the battalion as well. I like this idea of the mixed battalions, and I want to see more of them from the cities. I want to see mixed battalions that go, cool, this city, let's say, for instance, Anvil Guard. We have the Charwind Beast Hunters, which is a Scourge Privateer battalion, and I really love that battalion, but it'd be so much cool to see the Anvil Guard Defenders and have units like Darkened Covens, Order Serpentis, Scourge Privateers, Shadowblades, all put in the same army and fighting as a cohesive force. Much the same as it would be something interesting to see a force for, say, the Living City that not only contains Sylvaneth, but contains Dispossessed and contains Wanderers in the one battalion. Battalions like this would help push the narrative of the armies forward, and in general just give more options to the Cities of Sigmar, which they do already have quite a lot of options available to them. I spoke about it before, but point number four is, I think nearly everything in the Cities of Sigmar book is savable by a few point changes up and down. Now, I do mean up and down, and this is because I do feel some units are potentially too cheap, and because they're so efficient at their points cost now, you're never going to see other units taken in their place. But in the same time, you want to see some points taken and down on some units that don't see the table a lot, and it would be really good to see just some minute point changes to help change up what we see in Cities of Sigmar armies. Point number 5. Now this is one unit in particular that I saw a lot of people say for. and that is executioners. Executioners are probably the most saddening units that people talk about after the book came out. They did lose their 2 mortal wounds. I would like to see them go back to their 2 mortal wound thing. This would put them above what greatswords can do in output and make them seem like those heavy elf executioners that they are. I don't believe that 2 mortal wounds splash is anything to worry about in modern Age of Sigmar, and maybe that's a thing to discuss about Age of Sigmar in general, but I really don't think executioners needed to lose the 2 mortal wound output potential. Point number 6 is, I mentioned how I like mixed battalions, but I also think there should be ways to play mono small sub-faction armies properly as well. It's the thing you've got to balance. Is there going to be people that like playing a mixed army, but there's also going to be people that like playing a secular sort of army, a single sub-faction, whether that be dispossessed, wanderers, free people, scourge privateers, or whatever. And you've got to sort of cater to both, I think, because both are a major part of the community that makes up the Cities of Sigmar community. Now, this doesn't have to be battalions in such, but could be something else entirely. And I don't know how we go about this. Maybe this is the battle line options, or maybe we give some particular options when you take this as battle line. All of the options become battle line for that army. But there is already a lot of battle line options in the Cities of Sigmar, and many of that does happen that way already. But I feel like there should be some way to being rewarded for playing in a mono faction as well. Point number 7, I want to see some new units, and I want to see city-specific units. So there's talk of, like, Greywater Fastness is a good example. It tells us about the Grey Caps, which are an elite unit of handgunners. So it might be interesting, if you remember, Forge World used to sell a unit called the Nuln Ironsides, which were effectively handgunners in heavy armour. It was a really cool thing. Maybe something like that could be used to represent these Grey Caps from Greywater Fastness, and we could have like this cool elite handgunner unit. You know, maybe they hit on 3s naturally, and maybe they've got heavy armour and all that. But I think city-specific units, and a unit can only be taken in one city, is like an elite unit from that city, would be a cool thing to add to this model range without changing any of the existing kits or aesthetics of the existing kits. Point number 8 is, when cities were going to be released, a lot of people were speculating on what a terrain piece would be for them. Of course, we ended up not getting a terrain piece at all for cities, and personally I do like that a lot, because it means I don't have to lug around a terrain piece. That is a good thing in itself. Some people may agree or disagree that they don't like having a terrain piece, whatever. However, I would like to see maybe the potential for purchasable defensive pieces of terrain for Cities of Sigmar. Imagine if we could purchase watchtowers or fences or stuff like that allowed us to set up in a defensive cordon and allowed us to play a game out of a defensive base. It'd be quite cool for Cities of Sigmar to be able to do this and really give some of our units an actual cool sort of role to play on the battlefield, and give cities a little bit extra of a very different sort of play style, I think. Point number 9, and this is another sort of singular thing, is I want a mounted Wanderers hero. Wanderers have a really cool offensive unit in the Wild Riders. They are as frail as wet tissue paper, but they can hit quite hard. The Nomad Prince does give them good buffs. However, he's on foot and he just can't keep up with them. What I would like to see is maybe a mounted variation of the Nomad Prince model. So this way he can keep up with units like the Wild Riders and be able to help buff them. And just, you'll probably see Wild Riders more on the table if they had a effective way to buff them, like a Nomad Prince on Steed or something. And I think this goes for other particular units as well. There's obviously no Empire, Free Guild General on horse. You can't keep up with your Pistoliers and stuff. I know you have the Griffin, but that's paying for a giant monster to do it when you could have a smaller hero. These smaller, minor mounted heroes would be a cool thing to have, I think. And point number 10. Now this is going to be an interesting one, is that I want to see the battle line sort of shift. I like how Cities has a lot of battle line, and that's a really cool thing. However, I sort of want to see it shift in a way that goes more towards what city you're taking affects what battle line. This, of course, does affect some of the battle line, but I feel there are a few oppressive units in the book that are just so good for what they do, people take them at all all times in any city, and you sort of see them as battle line for every city, when in narrative wise they actually are more rare and are more specific to one particular city. Probably a good example of this is Phoenix Guard. Like, I love Phoenix Guard, they're a great unit, and I don't want to see them disappear from cities. However, they are oppressive to the point where you're not seeing units that could be taken because Phoenix Guard are just so efficient, and ability to be battle line just compounds that in. If we were to change Phoenix Guard slightly, like I've mentioned, maybe incremental point increases to Phoenix Guard and take something down a notch, then you start to see some options and differences, and Phoenix Guard would still be good if they costed 200 points. Let's make no mistake about that. However, if you were to change, like, let's say, Phoenix Guard, as I'm using as an example, I would like to see them be battle line option if you're playing Phoenicium, the city which they are supposed to be represented in the most. And many things like this. I would like to see the cities rewarded for taking the unit that narratively represents them. There's many other options like this. I feel like Free Guild and Dispossessed should be in most cities because they are sort of like the mainstay, and then the different elves flavors should be representative of each city. You know, Wanderers in Living City, all your Dark Elf stuff like Dark and Covens and stuff in Anvil Guard, Phoenix Temple in Phoenicium, etc. But anyway, that's 10 things I'd like to see from Cities of Sigmar in the future. I'd really like to know what you would like to see in the future. So leave some comments down below of what you would like to see. Also, if there's a faction we haven't done yet and you'd like to see that faction done, please leave that in the comments down below. Lastly, don't forget to like the video and don't forget to subscribe. We're so close to 800 and punching on towards 1,000, which is amazing. And thank you for everyone for supporting the channel. And last of all, don't forget to stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the grey.